Why our first impressions are often wrong. Have you met a new coworker or neighbor who seems cold or rude during your first interaction? Imagine you say hello to a new neighbor and they barely acknowledge you, give a short one-word answer, and quickly walk away. Your first impression is likely that they are unfriendly or arrogant. However, this is often a false positive. While we often pride ourselves on our intuition, psychology reveals that first impressions are frequently flawed. Here is a comprehensive deep dive into the mechanisms that distort our initial judgments and why they so often lead us astray. The snap judgment mechanism. In as little as 100 milliseconds, your brain has already formed an opinion on someone's trustworthiness, competence, and status. This process, known as thin slicing, is an evolutionary leftover. For our ancestors, quickly deciding if a stranger was a friend or foe was a matter of survival. Today, however, these ancient survival instincts often misfire in the complex social and professional landscapes of the 21st century. 1. The fundamental attribution error. This is perhaps the most common reason our impressions fail. When we observe someone's behavior for the first time, we tend to attribute it to their permanent character rather than their temporary circumstances. The scenario: you meet a new colleague who is short-tempered and dismissive. The impression: they are an arrogant, unpleasant person. The reality: they might be dealing with a family emergency, a lack of sleep, or a looming deadline. Why it's wrong? Because we don't have contextual data for a stranger, we fill the void with personality traits. We judge ourselves by our circumstances, but we judge others by their mistakes. The halo and horns effect. Our brains love consistency. If we perceive one positive trait, we subconsciously bootstrap a whole suite of other positive qualities onto that person. This is the halo effect. The attractive bias. Research consistently shows we perceive physically attractive people as more intelligent, kind, and capable. The horns effect, the opposite is true. If someone has a cold handshake or a disheveled appearance, we might wrongly assume they are also disorganized, lazy, or untrustworthy. Overgeneralization and baby-facedness. Evolution has hardwired us to respond to certain facial archetypes. One prominent example is baby face overgeneralization. Adults with round faces, large eyes, and high eyebrows are often perceived as more naive, honest, and kind, even if they are actually ruthless in business. Conversely, individuals with more mature or angular features are often hit with a first impression of being dominant or threatening, regardless of their actual temperament. Why first impressions are sticky. The real danger isn't just that the first impression is wrong, it's that it is incredibly difficult to overwrite. Confirmation bias. Once the rude or unintelligent label is applied, your brain begins to act as a filter. You will notice every moment that confirms your bias and ignore every moment that contradicts it. If the rude neighbor finally smiles, you might think they're just trying to get something from me, rather than accepting they are actually friendly. The liking gap. Interestingly, our impressions of ourselves are often wrong too. The liking gap is a psychological phenomenon where people systematically underestimate how much a new acquaintance liked them. We walk away from a first meeting ruminating on our awkward silences, while the other person likely walked away thinking we were perfectly pleasant. Summary table for why judgments fail. Thin slicing, making a judgment in less than 1 second and relies on stereotypes rather than facts. Spotlight effect, thinking everyone is watching your flaws make you act awkwardly, creating a bad impression. Similarity bias, preferring people who look or act like us leads to unfair exclusion of diverse perspectives. Primacy effect, remembering the first piece of info best makes it hard to unlearn a bad start. In conclusion, while our ability to form rapid judgments was once a vital survival tool, it is poorly suited for the nuances of modern life. Our first impressions are often wrong because they are built on cognitive shortcuts, like the fundamental attribution error and the halo effect, that prioritize speed over accuracy. We mistake a bad day for a bad character, and we allow physical traits to blind us to actual personality. The danger lies in the stickiness of these initial thoughts. Because of confirmation bias, we don't just form a wrong opinion, we actively work to maintain it, filtering out any evidence that suggests we were mistaken. By acknowledging these mental blind spots, we can move from snap judgments to slow thinking. True understanding requires time, context, and a willingness to be proven wrong. In a world that moves fast, the most accurate impressions are usually the ones we allow to evolve.